The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched beyond what most minds could grasp. Crystalline beings floated alongside gaseous forms that shifted like living clouds. Insectoid creatures clicked their mandibles in rhythm while reptilian delegates hissed softly in their ancient tongues. In the center of this magnificent assembly sat one human, looking remarkably ordinary among the exotic life forms that ruled the galaxy. Admiral Thorn adjusted his simple blue uniform and tried not to stare at the Vortani delegate whose body sparkled like a living diamond. 3,000 years of peace had created this council, bringing together 47 different species under one governing body. Humans had joined just 5 years ago, making them the newest and least experienced members of this cosmic parliament. The council speaker, a towering nebulan whose form resembled purple mist held together by will alone, addressed the assembly. We gather today to discuss the growing conflict between the Krokan hegemony and the Altarian Federation. Border disputes have escalated beyond diplomatic resolution. Thorn listened as representatives from various species spoke about trade routes and territorial claims. The humans had no stake in this particular conflict, but council membership required participation in peacekeeping efforts. Earth's government had specifically instructed him to observe and learn rather than volunteer for active duty. The Krokan have always been aggressive, declared Admiral Christic of the Vortani Imperium. Her crystalline form pulsed with angry red light. Their plasma destroyers have already eliminated 3 Altarian outposts. We must respond with force. The Hive Collective's representative, a creature that looked like a walking stick covered in smaller insects, clicked its response. Our bioships can neutralize their organic components. The Krokan fear our viral weapons more than their own plasma cannons. Thorn found himself fascinated by how each species had developed along different technological paths. The Vortani focused on energy manipulation, bending light and heat to their will. The Hive Collective had mastered biological warfare, creating living ships that could adapt and evolve during battle. The Nebulans used phase shift technology, becoming partially incorporeal, to avoid enemy fire. What of the humans? The council speaker's attention turned to Thorn. Your species has remained silent during these discussions. Surely Earth's colonial defense force has something to contribute to our peacekeeping efforts. Thorn stood slowly, aware that every alien eye in the chamber was now focused on him. We appreciate the Council's confidence in our abilities. Humanity is prepared to provide whatever support the mission requires. Support? Admiral Christek's light shifted to what Thorn had learned indicated amusement among her people. What exactly can your primitive vessels offer against Krokan plasma technology? Your species only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. The human admiral kept his expression neutral. Earth's intelligence services had provided detailed briefings on every major galactic power. The Vortani considered humans barely above the level of clever animals. Most of species viewed humanity's rapid technological development with suspicion, but their military capabilities had been consistently underestimated. We have adequate defensive measures, Thorn replied simply. This response triggered what could only be described as polite laughter from several delegates. The Krokan representative, a massive reptilian creature with scales that looked like living armor, spoke for the first time. Perhaps the humans could handle supply runs while the real militaries deal with combat operations. An excellent suggestion, agreed the council speaker. Admiral Thorn, your forces will provide logistical support and medical aid to the primary battle groups. The Vortani will lead the Energy Warfare Division, while the Hive Collective manages biological operations. The Nebulan Fleet will handle reconnaissance and stealth missions. Thorn nodded his acceptance. Understood. When do we deploy? Within 48 hours, the speaker replied. The Kepler system requires immediate intervention before the Krokan can establish permanent control over Altarian colonies. As the session concluded, various alien delegates approached Thorn with what seemed like genuine concern for human safety. The Vortani admiral suggested keeping human ships at least 10,000 kilometers from any combat zone. The Hive representative offered to provide biological shielding for human vessels. assuming their technology was too primitive for adequate protection. "Your species shows courage in volunteering for this mission," Admiral Christic told him privately. "But galactic warfare operates on scales your people have never experienced. The weapons we deploy could vaporize your entire fleet in seconds." "We appreciate your concern," Thorn replied. "But humans have a saying about learning from experience." Later, aboard his flagship, Liberty, Thorn met with his senior staff to review the mission parameters. Commander Phillips, his tactical officer, seemed frustrated by their assigned role. "Sir, they're treating us like we're flying cargo containers with engines," she complained. "Our weapon systems are more advanced than anything these aliens have ever seen, and they want us to deliver medical supplies. That might work in our favor," replied Thorn thoughtfully. "The less they know about our actual capabilities, the more options we'll have if things go wrong." His chief engineer, a practical woman named Torres, pulled up holographic displays showing human military assets. The council members seem to assume that newer means weaker. They don't understand that humans develop differently because we face different challenges. Thorn studied the data carefully. While other species had evolved in relatively peaceful galaxies, humanity had emerged from a world where survival meant constant adaptation and improvement. Human military doctrine reflected millions of years of evolutionary pressure to create better weapons, stronger defenses, and more effective tactics. "They fight with energy and biology," observed his science officer, Dr. Kim. "They've never had to deal with purely kinetic weapons on this scale. Their shields are designed to deflect energy beams and neutralize living organisms, not stop solid objects moving at significant fractions of light speed." The human fleet prepared for departure with quiet efficiency. 73 vessels that the galactic community assumed were lightly armed transports and medical ships. The aliens had no idea that each cargo vessel contained enough firepower to level a small moon, or that humanity's primitive weapons were specifically designed to counter the exact defensive systems used by every major galactic power. Admiral Thorn looked out at the stars and wondered how long it would take the Council to realize their mistake. Humans had joined the galactic community hoping to learn from older, more experienced civilizations. Instead, they might be about to teach the galaxy some very hard lessons about the dangers of underestimating Earth's children. Space around the Kepler system looked like a graveyard of burning metal and twisted debris. Altarian colony ships drifted dead in the void while massive Krogan vessels continued their systematic destruction of anything that moved. The orbital bombardment had turned 3 peaceful worlds into smoking ruins, and the aliens called this standard military procedure. Captain Reynolds watched the carnage from the bridge of his ship, defiant, and felt his jaw tighten with suppressed anger. The Krogan fleet had arrived 2 days earlier with overwhelming force, demanding immediate surrender of all Altarian territories. When the peaceful aliens refused, the reptilian warriors had simply begun killing everything in the system. "Allied fleet dropping out of hyperspace," reported his communications officer. "Vortani battleships are taking point positions." The rescue fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Crystalline Vortani ships gleamed like jeweled daggers while the Hive Collective's organic vessels pulsed with living energy. Nebulan phase ships flickered in and out of normal space, preparing for stealth operations. The human contingent maintained position at the rear, exactly where the Council had ordered them to stay. Admiral Christek's voice crackled across all communication channels. "Krogan forces, you are in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 847. Withdraw immediately or face military consequences." The response came from the Krogan flagship, a monstrous dreadnought called World Render that stretched nearly 4 kilometers from bow to stern. "Vortani Crystal Crawler, this system belongs to the hegemony now. Your pretty light shows cannot harm true warriors." Reynolds had read the intelligence files on Krogan military doctrine. They built their ships like flying fortresses, relying on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower to crush enemies through brute force. The World Render alone carried enough plasma weapons to sterilize an entire planet, and its defensive systems had never been penetrated by enemy fire. "All units, engage at will," Admiral Christic ordered. "Implement standard galactic warfare protocols." The battle began with the familiar dance that had defined space combat for 3,000 years. Vortani ships fired concentrated energy beams that struck Krokan shields in brilliant displays of light and force. The reptilian vessels responded with plasma cannons that sent superheated matter streaming through space. Both sides knew exactly what to expect from this kind of engagement. Reynolds moved his ship closer to the action, ignoring repeated orders to maintain safe distance. The human vessels looked pathetically small compared to the massive alien warships, but their crews were veterans of Earth's colonial conflicts. They had learned warfare in the asteroid belt, where a single mistake meant death in the cold vacuum of space. "Their shields are holding," reported his tactical officer. "Krokan defensive systems are designed to absorb energy weapons. The Vortani beams aren't getting through." The Hive Collective tried their bioweapons next, launching living projectiles that attempted to eat through Krokan hulls. But the reptilian armor was specifically treated to resist biological attacks, and the organic missiles simply dissolved harmlessly against treated metal surfaces. Admiral Christek's frustration was evident in her communications. "All units, concentrate. Fire on the flagship. We must disable their primary weapon before they can target the remaining colonies." Reynolds could see what she was talking about. The world render was charging something massive in its forward section. Energy readings that indicated a planet-killer weapon capable of cracking tectonic plates. The Krokan commander intended to demonstrate what happened to species that defied the hegemony. "Captain," his weapons officer called out, "permission to engage?" "Negative," Reynolds replied, following his orders to avoid combat. "We're here as observers." The Allied fleet concentrated their firepower on the Krokan flagship, but 3,000 years of defensive technology proved its worth. Energy shields deflected beam weapons, while layered armor absorbed kinetic impacts from conventional projectiles. The world render continued charging its planet killer, apparently immune to everything the galaxy's finest military forces could throw at it. "All ships fall back," Admiral Christic ordered with obvious reluctance. "We cannot penetrate their defenses with current weapons. The colony world below is lost according to established rules of engagement." Reynolds felt something cold settle in his stomach as he realized the aliens were giving up. They had superior numbers and advanced technology, but they were trapped by thousands of years of military tradition that said some targets simply could not be destroyed. The Krokan had built the perfect fortress, and galactic doctrine had no answer for perfect fortresses. His communication panel lit up with an encrypted signal from Admiral Thorne aboard the Liberty. The message was simple and direct. "Remove the threat." "Sir?" His tactical officer looked confused. "How do we engage something that big with our current weapon loadout?" Reynolds almost smiled as he activated systems that no alien had ever seen. "In action, prep the kinetic bombardment array. Target the flagship's primary weapon system." "But sir, their shields—" "Won't matter," Reynolds interrupted. "Titanium tungsten penetrator rounds, maximum velocity. Let's show these aliens what happens when you throw rocks really, really fast." The Defiant's hidden weapon systems came online with mechanical precision. While other species had developed energy weapons and biological warfare, humans had perfected the art of making solid objects move at significant fractions of light speed. The mathematics were simple, elegant, and absolutely devastating. 3 railgun rounds launched from the human vessel at nearly 30% of light speed. The Krokan shields, designed to deflect energy and neutralize living matter, had no defense against pure kinetic force delivered with that kind of velocity. The tungsten rods passed through their defensive systems like they weren't even there. The world render simply ceased to exist. 4 kilometers of the most heavily armed vessel in Krokan history became an expanding cloud of superheated debris. In the space of 3 seconds, the massive dreadnought that had been about to destroy an entire world was suddenly just glowing metal scattered across several thousand cubic kilometers of space. Every ship in the system stopped firing. The sudden Silence on all communication channels was more profound than any sound Reynolds had ever heard. 47 different species had just watched their understanding of space warfare become completely obsolete. "My God," whispered his tactical officer. "We just killed their flagship with 3 shots." Reynolds looked at the expanding debris field where the world render had been and realized that everything was about to change. Humanity had just revealed that all the defensive systems in the galaxy were useless against the right kind of weapon. The careful balance of power that had maintained peace for 3 millennia had just been shattered by 3 pieces of metal moving very fast. "Send a message to the remaining Krokan vessels," he ordered quietly. "Suggest they consider immediate withdrawal." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in absolute chaos. Representatives from 47 species filled the Great Hall with sounds of panic, confusion, and barely controlled fear. Some delegates demanded immediate explanations, while others called for humanity's expulsion from the council. The Krokan representative, his scaled hide bearing fresh scars from his flagship's destruction, sat in stunned silence. Admiral Thorne entered the chamber to find every alien eye focused on him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright terror. The comfortable atmosphere of his first council meeting had been replaced by something that felt dangerously close to an inquisition. He took his assigned seat and waited for the accusations to begin. Council Speaker Venth, the massive Nebulan, whose gaseous form now churned with agitated purple light, called for order. "We are here to discuss the unprecedented events in the Kepler system. Admiral Thorne, your vessel destroyed the most heavily defended ship in Krokan history with what appeared to be simple projectile weapons." "Explain how this is possible." Thorne stood slowly, aware that his next words would reshape galactic politics forever. "We used kinetic bombardment systems. Tungsten titanium rods accelerated to approximately 30% of light speed. The physics are straightforward." "Straightforward?" Admiral Christek's crystalline form flashed with disbelief. "No known weapon can penetrate Krokan defensive shields. Their technology has been tested against every energy source in the galaxy." That's the problem," Thorne replied calmly. "You've all been fighting with energy weapons for so long that you forgot about simpler solutions. We just throw rocks very fast." The explanation triggered an explosion of voices as delegates tried to process this information. The Hive Collective's representative clicked frantically while consulting biological computers embedded in its carapace. Several smaller species huddled together in obvious fear, realizing that their own defensive systems would be equally useless against human weapons. Counselor Prism of the Vortani Imperium managed to restore some order to the discussion. "The energy requirements alone should make such weapons impossible. The precision targeting needed to hit a moving target at interstellar ranges exceeds the computational power of any known system." "We're good at math," Thorne said simply. "Human computers were specifically designed to solve complex ballistic problems. We've been calculating projectile trajectories for thousands of years." Dr. Alexis, the human scientific advisor, activated a holographic display showing the basic principles behind kinetic weapons. Other species developed energy shields because they faced energy-based threats. Humans developed kinetic weapons because we spent millennia throwing increasingly sophisticated projectiles at each other. The implications began sinking in as alien scientists studied the human data. The Nebulan delegate, a being whose species prided themselves on advanced physics, spoke in a voice filled with growing horror. "If you can accelerate solid matter to those velocities, then every defensive system in the galaxy is obsolete. Energy shields, phase barriers, biological armor, none of it matters against pure kinetic force." "That's correct," confirmed Thorne. "We assumed everyone else had similar capabilities when we joined the Council. We've been restraining ourselves to avoid seeming aggressive." This statement caused what could only be described as pandemonium. Representatives began shouting questions in dozens of different languages while their translation devices struggled to keep up with the rapid exchange of information. The careful diplomatic protocols that governed council sessions collapsed under the weight of genuine panic. The Krokan delegate finally found his voice. "How many of these weapons do you possess?" Every human vessel carries kinetic bombardment systems as standard equipment, replied Dr. Alexis matter-of-factly. We also have planetary defense grids, orbital platforms, and mobile artillery units. It's basic military doctrine. Admiral Christek's crystalline form had gone completely transparent, a sign of extreme shock among her species. Your cargo ships are armed with weapons that can destroy our most powerful warships? Among other things, yes, Thorne admitted. Human. Civilian vessels are built to survive in hostile environments. We assume that anything moving through space might need to defend itself against attack. The council speaker struggled to maintain order as more terrifying details emerged. Human mining ships carried drilling lasers capable of cutting through any known material. Their exploration vessels mounted sensor arrays that could track targets across entire star systems. Even basic transport ships were armored and shielded to military specifications. This changes everything, whispered the representative from the peaceful Altarian Federation. If humans possess such weapons, why did you not reveal them during the application process for council membership? Because we thought they were normal, Thorne explained patiently. Every species we encountered seemed friendly and reasonable. We saw no need to discuss military capabilities with people we considered potential allies. The truth was becoming clear to every delegate in the chamber. Humanity had joined the galactic community armed with weapons that could eliminate any threat in the galaxy, but they had kept quiet about it because they assumed everyone else had similar capabilities. The species that other aliens considered primitive had been politely not mentioning that they could annihilate any ship in space. Counselor Zen of the Hive Collective posed the question that everyone was thinking. What other weapons do humans possess that we should know about? Dr. Alexis consulted her datapad briefly. Well, there are the antimatter devices, chemical weapons, biological agents, nuclear arsenals, gravitational manipulators, and various experimental systems. But most of those are considered obsolete by current military standards. The silence that followed this statement lasted for nearly a full minute. 46 different species sat in stunned shock as they realized that humanity's obsolete weapons were more advanced than anything in their current arsenals. The Kroken, who had been the dominant military power in the galaxy for centuries, looked like they were having some kind of collective nervous breakdown. Admiral Thorne, the council speaker said carefully, perhaps it would be beneficial for humanity to provide a complete assessment of your military capabilities. For the sake of galactic security, you understand. Thorne considered this request thoughtfully. I'll need to consult with Earth's government, but I think we can arrange something. However, I should mention that our most advanced military assets are still classified. What you saw at Kepler represents our least destructive weapons. This final revelation broke what remained of the council's composure. Representatives began demanding immediate recesses, emergency communications with their home governments, and urgent reviews of all existing military treaties. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic peace for 3 millennia had just been revealed as a house of cards, and humanity was holding all the winds. As the session dissolved into chaos, Thorne realized that his species was about to become either the galaxy's protector or its greatest threat. Either way, the age of human restraint was rapidly coming to an end. Fear spread through the galaxy faster than any faster-than-light communication system. Within days of the council session, every major civilization was frantically reassessing their relationship with humanity. Trade agreements were suspended, diplomatic missions were recalled, and military forces across known space began desperate preparations for a war they had no idea how to fight. The Kroken hegemony, once the most feared military power in the galaxy, made an unprecedented decision. For the first time in their violent history, they requested immediate peace negotiations. The destruction of their flagship had shattered more than just metal and plasma conduits. It had broken their fundamental understanding of how warfare worked in the modern galaxy. General Korax, the supreme military commander of the Kroken forces, delivered his surrender in person aboard Admiral Thorne's ship, the massive reptilian warrior, whose species had never known defeat, knelt before a human and formally requested terms for ending hostilities. "Your weapons make our defenses meaningless," Korax admitted, his scaled hide bearing ritual scars of shame. "We cannot fight an enemy that can destroy our greatest ships with simple projectiles. The hegemony yields to human military superiority." Thorn found the situation deeply uncomfortable. "We don't want your surrender, General. We just want you to stop attacking peaceful colonies." "But how can we maintain military operations knowing that humans can eliminate our forces at will?" Korax's confusion was genuine. "Your species has made traditional warfare obsolete." Similar conversations were taking place across known space. The Vortani Imperium had begun crash programs to develop kinetic weapons, but their energy-based technology required complete redesign from the ground up. The Hive Collective was attempting to create biological defenses against solid projectiles. With predictably limited success, President Walsh of the Terran Federation addressed the galaxy via quantum communication link, hoping to calm the growing panic. Her words were broadcast to every inhabited world in Council space. "Humanity never intended to destabilize galactic politics," she explained. "When we joined the Council, we assumed all spacefaring civilizations had developed similar military capabilities. We have been deliberately restraining our weapon systems to avoid appearing aggressive to our new neighbors." The response to her speech was not reassurance but greater terror. If humans had been holding back their weapons, what were they truly capable of? Intelligence reports began flooding alien governments with increasingly disturbing assessments of human military doctrine. Dr. Vex, the galaxy's leading expert on military technology, published a comprehensive analysis that sent shockwaves through every major civilization. His report, titled "The Human Problem," became required reading for military leaders across known space. Human warfare evolved differently because Earth was a hostile environment, his analysis began. While other species developed in relative safety, humans spent millions of years perfecting ways to kill each other more efficiently. Their military technology reflects this evolutionary pressure. The report detailed how human weapons were designed not for elegant energy manipulation or biological warfare, but for practical effectiveness. While aliens had developed shields that could deflect energy beams, humans had created weapons specifically meant to penetrate defensive systems. Where other species used armor to absorb damage, humans built weapons that could destroy any armor ever made. The most terrifying section of Dr. Vex's report dealt with human defensive philosophy. Unlike other species that relied on sophisticated shielding technology, humans armored their ships with layered composites and reactive plating. They expected to be shot at with physical projectiles and had designed their vessels accordingly. Human military vessels are not just armed, the report concluded. They are mobile weapons platforms disguised as ships. Every system aboard a human warship is designed to either inflict damage or survive damage. They do not separate military and civilian technology because they assume all spacecraft might need to fight. This revelation explained why human cargo ships could destroy alien battleships. Humanity had never developed truly civilian vessels because their home system was too dangerous. Every ship was built to military specifications, because anything less was considered a death trap, the Nebulan science. Council attempted to duplicate human kinetic weapons using their advanced physics capabilities. After months of intensive research, they managed to accelerate a small projectile to 15% of light speed. The weapon promptly exploded, taking their entire testing facility with it. "Human technology is not just advanced," reported Chief Scientist Mist. "It is fundamentally alien to our understanding of physics. They have solved problems we did not know existed using mathematics we barely comprehend." Meanwhile, the Hive Collective discovered that human vessels carried something even more disturbing than kinetic weapons. Biological analysis of captured human ship components revealed traces of chemical compounds that could sterilize entire ecosystems. Further investigation showed that humans had developed biological weapons capable of targeting specific genetic markers the aliens realized with growing horror that humanity had created weapons designed to eliminate entire species while leaving others untouched. The peaceful farmers and traders they had welcomed into the council possessed the tools for systematic genocide on a galactic scale. "We need to reconsider everything we know about human intentions," warned Counselor Hive 7. "A species that develops such weapons may not be as peaceful as they claim." But the most disturbing discovery came from the Vortani intelligence services. Deep scans of the Sol system revealed massive installations hidden throughout the asteroid belt, orbital platforms around every major planetary body, and energy signatures that suggested weapons of unimaginable power. Admiral Kristek's final report to the Vortani High Command contained a single, terrifying conclusion. What humans used against the Krogan flagship represents their least destructive military technology. Their true weapons remain hidden in the Sol system, and we have no idea what they are capable of. The galaxy's response was swift and desperate. Every major power began immediate diplomatic overtures to Earth, offering trade agreements, technology exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. Nobody wanted to face human weapons in actual combat, so they scrambled to ensure they would never need. The Galactic Council restructured itself within weeks, creating a permanent human defense liaison position and granting Earth veto power over all military actions. It was not an honor bestowed out of respect. It was pure fear wrapped in diplomatic language. As reports of human military capabilities continued to surface, one fact became increasingly clear to every species in the galaxy. They had not welcomed a new member into their peaceful community. They had accidentally invited the most dangerous predators in known space to join their civilization. And those predators had been politely pretending to be harmless for 5 years. The age of galactic peace, maintained through diplomatic balance, was ending. A new era was beginning. One where peace would be maintained through the knowledge that somewhere in the Sol system, humans were quietly calculating trajectories and preparing to defend their friends by eliminating their enemies. The Krogan war fleet that entered the Sol system was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 5,000 ships carrying the combined might of 12 allied species, all united by a single terrifying purpose. They had come to eliminate humanity before human weapons could spread throughout the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Brutus, the most decorated Krogan warrior in a millennium of conquest, commanded the invasion from his flagship Galaxy Crusher. The massive vessel stretched 8 kilometers from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to reduce entire worlds to radioactive ash. Surrounding it were the finest warships from civilizations across known space, each one representing thousands of years of military evolution. "Human worlds detected ahead," reported his tactical officer. "Sol system contains 9 planetary bodies and extensive asteroid mining operations. No visible defenses?" Brutus studied the tactical displays with growing confidence. The human home system looked exactly like the peaceful farming colonies his forces had conquered for centuries. A few orbital stations, some mining platforms, and scattered civilian traffic that would provide no meaningful resistance to his overwhelming firepower. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target the 3rd planet first? Make their homeworld burn, so the rest of the galaxy understands what happens to species that threaten established order." The Allied fleet accelerated toward Earth, weapons charging and targeting systems locked onto population centers. Brutus had chosen to make humanity's destruction visible to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Today would mark the end of the human threat and restore proper balance to civilized space. The first indication that something was wrong came when his long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt. What had appeared to be simple mining operations revealed themselves as heavily fortified weapons platforms, each one radiating power levels that exceeded anything in his fleet. "Sir," his sensor operator's voice carried a note of confusion, "Luna. Base is not a research station. It's showing the energy signature of a planetary defense grid." Before Brutus could respond, the asteroid belt opened fire. Hundreds of kinetic projectiles launched simultaneously from hidden installations. Each one accelerated to velocities that made the Kepler system demonstration look like a gentle warning. The mathematics were simple and absolute. Mass times velocity equals devastation on an unimaginable scale. The first wave of projectiles struck his lead ships before their crews could even register the attack. Kroken dreadnoughts that had survived 1,000 battles simply ceased to exist, transformed into expanding clouds of superheated debris in fractions of seconds. The alien vessel's defensive systems, designed to counter energy weapons and biological attacks, provided no protection against pure kinetic force delivered at 40% of light speed. Evasive maneuvers. Brutus roared, but space physics made such orders meaningless. His massive fleet, spread across thousands of cubic kilometers of space, could not dodge weapons that traveled faster than their sensors could track. The second wave came from Mars orbital platforms. Antimatter missiles launched with targeting precision that defied comprehension, each one guided by quantum computers that could calculate intercept trajectories across interplanetary distances. The weapons struck with surgical accuracy, eliminating the largest threats first while smaller vessels watched in helpless terror. Brutus felt his understanding of warfare crumble as he watched the most powerful military force in galactic history being systematically destroyed by an enemy they could not even see clearly. Human weapons platforms remained hidden in the debris field of the asteroid belt, revealing themselves only through the destruction they delivered with mechanical precision. "Retreat!" he ordered desperately. "All ships fall back to hyperspace. Transition point." But the humans had anticipated this response. Luna Base revealed its true nature as massive railgun installations rotated to track fleeing ships. The Earth's moon, which had appeared to be a simple research facility, was actually the largest weapons platform ever constructed. Its surface was covered with kinetic bombardment systems, capable of engaging targets throughout the entire solar system. The retreat became a massacre. Ships that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia found themselves helpless against weapons that ignored every defensive system ever devised. Kroken plasma cannons could not target enemies hidden in asteroid fields. Vortani energy shields provided no protection against solid tungsten moving at relativistic speeds. The Hive Collective's biological armor simply vaporized under kinetic impact. Admiral Brutus watched his tactical display as red icons, representing destroyed ships multiplied faster than he could count. 5,000 vessels, the pride of a dozen civilizations, were being eliminated by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever encountered. These were not the elegant energy duels or biological warfare campaigns that defined modern combat. This was pure mechanical annihilation delivered with terrifying efficiency. "Communications from Earth," his operator reported. "They're requesting our surrender." The irony was not lost on Brutus, as he realized his position had become identical to that of the peaceful colonies his forces had attacked for centuries. He was facing an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority, and continued resistance would only result in the complete destruction of his forces. "Signal all ships," he ordered quietly. "Cease hostilities and prepare for surrender." The human response was swift and professional. Admiral Thorne himself arrived aboard a vessel that looked deceptively similar to the cargo ships that had first appeared at council meetings. But Brutus could now see the hidden weapon ports, the armored sections, and the sensor arrays that marked it as a warship designed by a species that truly understood violence. "Admiral Brutus," Thorne said as he boarded the Galaxy Crusher, "I regret that it came to this. We had hoped the demonstration at Kepler would be sufficient to prevent further conflict." "Your weapons," Brutus struggled to find words for what he had witnessed. "They make everything we know about warfare obsolete." "How long have humans possessed such capabilities?" "Since we first reached space," Thorne replied honestly. "We developed these systems because we assumed the galaxy was a dangerous place. When we discovered that most species were peaceful, we tried to match your energy levels to avoid seeming threatening. The aftermath of the Sol System battle reshaped galactic civilization more completely than any event in recorded history. The combined fleet that had come to destroy humanity limped home carrying news of their devastating defeat. Governments that had existed for millennia collapsed as species, realized their military forces were utterly obsolete. The Galactic Council reconvened an emergency session with humanity, holding a permanent security position. No major decision could be made without human approval, not because of legal requirements, but because everyone understood that opposing Earth meant facing weapons that could eliminate entire civilizations. Admiral Thorne found himself appointed as the first Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense Forces, a position created specifically to prevent further conflicts through superior firepower. At his inauguration ceremony, he addressed representatives from 46 species who had learned to fear the humans they had once dismissed. "We never wanted to be the galaxy's police force," he told the assembled delegates. "But recent events have shown that some species respond only to strength. As long as anyone threatens peaceful civilizations, humanity will be ready to end those threats permanently." Construction began immediately on humanity's first interstellar kinetic bombardment platform, a massive station that could project Earth's defensive capabilities across the galaxy. The announcement that humans were expanding their weapons systems beyond the Sol system prompted immediate peace negotiations from every remaining aggressive species. The Krogan hegemony formally disbanded its military forces rather than risk further confrontation with human weapons. The few remaining militant civilizations in Council Space surrendered their territorial claims and requested humanitarian aid packages from Earth. War, as a tool of interstellar politics, had become impossible when one species possessed the ability to eliminate any threat with weapons that traveled faster than light itself. Peace settled over the galaxy not through wisdom or diplomacy, but through the simple understanding that resistance to the new order was suicide. Somewhere in the Sol system, humans continued their quiet work of calculating trajectories and maintaining weapons that could reach any star system in known space. The final scene of this new galactic order played out on the Krogan homeworld as massive ships began evacuating the planet's population. Their government had formally surrendered to prevent orbital bombardment, choosing exile over extinction. The proud warrior race that had terrorized peaceful species for centuries now fled their ancestral home, rather than face human weapons. Admiral Thorne watched the evacuation from his command center on Luna Base, feeling no satisfaction in his species' victory. Humanity had joined the galactic community hoping to learn from older civilizations. Instead, they had become the dominant military power through technologies that other species found impossible to counter. "Sir," his aide reported, "the Altarian Federation is requesting human protection for their remaining colonies. They're offering full economic partnership in exchange for defensive guarantees." Similar requests had been flooding Earth's diplomatic channels since the Sol system battle. Species that had once viewed humans as primitive were now desperately seeking alliances with the galaxy's new military superpower. Trade agreements that had taken years to negotiate were being signed within days as civilizations rushed to secure human friendship. The transformation was complete. Humanity had evolved from the galaxy's newest members to its ultimate arbiters of peace and war. The careful balance of power that had maintained stability for 3 millennia had been replaced by a simple equation. Those who threatened innocent people would face weapons that could crack planets and destroy fleets faster than light could travel. Dr. Kim, the human science officer who had first analyzed alien defensive systems, approached Thorne with a final report on the new galactic order. "The refugee crisis is stabilizing," she informed him. "Most aggressive species have chosen peaceful relocation over military confrontation. The few holdouts are requesting mediation rather than risking direct conflict." "Good," Thorne replied, though he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. "Make sure they understand that human protection extends to all peaceful species. We didn't become the galaxy's strongest military power to conquer anyone. We're here to make sure that conquest becomes impossible." The new motto of galactic civilization had become simple and direct. Peace through superior firepower was not an ideal that anyone had chosen, but it was the reality that human weapons had created. In a universe where one species possessed the ability to eliminate any threat with mathematical precision, war had become a luxury that no one could afford. As the stars wheeled through space and the galaxy settled into its new order, humanity took up the burden they had never wanted but could not avoid. They had become the guardians of galactic peace, armed with weapons that made resistance meaningless and protected by technologies that made their enemies' defenses obsolete. The age of balanced power was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Not through conquest or aggression, but through the simple demonstration that when humans decided to end a threat, that threat ceased to exist with mathematical certainty. The galaxy would remember the lesson, and peace would endure as long as everyone understood that somewhere in the Sol system, patient humans were calculating trajectories and quietly preparing to defend civilization against anyone foolish enough to threaten it.